Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, Capital Markets Analyst and host of your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today we've got Rob Hendrix. He's a rec shop owner in Central Washington and Ellensburg, as well as a consultant. Rob, thanks for being back on the podcast.
Great to be here, Josh.
So we've got an article from the Marijuana Business Daily that kind of goes into the pay-to-play system with cannabis brands forking over cash for retail shelf space.
In Washington?
Oh, it's happening all over in Ellensburg. You haven't heard about $50,000 a month in revenue? You're missing out.
Okay, I got to go. I mean, I don't mean to sound ignorant, although I do that well. I have never heard of anything like that.
I think it's happening mostly in California. It's an industry thing, you know, like Pepsi is very known for competing against Coca-Cola on the shelf. So it's an industry known thing, but for cannabis, it's just starting to become a thing. So I think Vegas is aware of it, and then LA and San Francisco, they're paying for shelf space. So if it normalizes, if the industry becomes just like everything else, then we'll be seeing very expensive shelf premium placements. And I think for the most part, it's end stands. Like if you want to have your own individual stand in a store, you know, at Planet 13, and you want them in all of the Planet 13s, probably going to be $15,000 to $50,000 a month, which is pretty crazy.
Goodness. Well, you know, my knee-jerk reaction was, well, that's illegal. Then I got to thinking, you know, it sounds wrong, but I'm not sure that it's against LCB rules. I'd have to, I mean, I'm certainly no attorney, but usually when I think something is problematic, it turns out the LCB has already discovered and made it a problem. You know, I never come up with anything new. I maybe new among discussions among retailers. Oh, that would never happen. They would never do that. Well, you know, that's kind of the argument. If you're parents of teenagers, you know, oh, Johnny would never do that. Oh, bullshit. Of course, Johnny. I mean, I'm not saying he did, but to say it couldn't happen is really kind of stupid. You know, it's ignorant. Mm-hmm. And every time I come up with something and I think, well, you know, we should check on that. It always turns out that it's no, we can't do that, or you shouldn't do that, or that's, you know, they refer to frequently asked questions, this and that and the other. And so my knee-jerk reaction was, this has got to be illegal. Mm-hmm. But this may be something that is kind of outside the bounds of rules and regs and WACs and RCWs and everything else. I don't know. I really don't know. And I probably should have better prepared myself, because you'd be asking me about those kind of things, and I frankly don't know.
I don't want you to speculate on the legality, just about the potential effects, how it is going to influence and affect your business in Ellensburg, the industry as a whole. So the legality and getting into the weeds about the specificity of the LCB, and none of that is relevant to this article. It's just about the concept. So
I think what makes a lot more sense, and as we're talking through, my little brain is kind of working. If Fat Panda, for example, big name, lots of money, lots of name recognition, they're a pretty powerful force in the industry, from a name recognition, from a reputation, perception, perceived reputation, whatever. But if you're going to pay somebody like us, it might only be $1,000 a month or $2,500 a month. I would rather them, maybe if they want to do something like that, just reduce the price of their product so that we can sell more. You know, there's the velocity of sales. You know, if we sell 100 joints when we pay $1 a piece, we might sell 300 joints if we paid 60 cents a piece or something. So now they're gonna let's rather than take the extortion money or the bribe money, why don't we just lower the price? The consumer benefits, the state benefits, because now you're selling more. You're going to generate more taxes, even though it's less per item. And the retailer's doing fine. I mean, I've always felt an obligation to, you know, we have inventory controls in place because that makes sense for a business to have inventory controls. Our biggest expense, besides labor, you know, you got labor, rent, and then your cost of goods are your biggest cost each month. So that should be the one thing that's massaged and managed, and we have a strict rule that nothing consumable in inventory more than 45 days. That'll get Margot fired. That will get Margot fired. One time you get a warning. The second time, if it's a consumable item, I don't care about the lighters. I really don't care so much about batteries and stuff like that. I mean, I do care about that, but the consumables have got to roll out of here in
even if it's a
45 days or less. And
sorry to interrupt. Even if it's a Twinkie that has a shelf life of centuries, they still the regulatory committee of the LCB, the Liquor and Cannabis Board in Washington, they still require after a month and a half you pull that off your shelf. Is that correct?
I don't know that. No.
So it's not. That's not a law, but that's your own.
No, that's me. That's me.
Okay.
That's just me. But see, but the way to help the industry and processors, growers, cultivators, processors, in now, this could change over time, and I do believe it's beginning to change over time as you see more consolidations and more mergers and acquisitions and things of this nature. But the best way for me to help a grower is to sell more of his or her product. Well, the way we can help each other is by giving me a good price, and let me be fair about how we price it. Now, I talk out of kind of both sides of my mouth because, if we screw up and we buy some stuff, we thought it was A product, and we get here and it's C- product. Well, regardless if we paid an A price, you got to sell it for what it's worth. You can't sell it based on what you paid for it. Sell it for what it's worth. I learned that in the car business. If I go to the auction, I paid $1,000 too much for a car, I cannot reasonably expect to make $2,000 profit on something that I paid $1,000 too much for. Sell the son of a bitch for what it's worth, and that's how we turn inventory. But it's also a way to help the growers. If they bust their ass and they sell me something for 50 cents a gram and I put it on the shelf for $6.50 a gram, I think maybe I'm piggybacking on the backs of the producer, cultivator, processors, and I don't know that that's completely right. So we try to strike a middle ground. We try to be fair about the pricing. So I guess bottom line is, if you're a vendor coming to me, hey, I'll give you $2,500 a month for this shelf space. First of all, I'm not sure the LCB is going to be cool with that. It just doesn't sound like. How do you tax that income? That's income. Where do you put that?
The fees are not tax deductible, by the way.
No. So because we're Schedule I, controlled substance, blah, 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 federal government, 280E and all that, I think that would be a problem to try to account for that. My bank's going to say, hey, we've seen these $2,500 deposits for 3 months in a row. What is that? And then they have to tell the LCB, because it's a triangle. It's communication from me to the bank to the LCB, LCB to me, LCB to the bank. It's just a continuous three-way conversation. And of course, it's more than a conversation. It's actual reporting and document checking. And I think that would be, I don't see how that could not be a problem. How do I account for that? Where did that come from? So as we're talking through it, it would, regardless of whether we could get away with it, I still think it's better for the industry, better for the consumer, and it's not hurting the state to just take that $2,500, divide it by the number of products that we're buying each month, and just give me a 10-cent per joint break or 20-cent per joint, or whatever the case may be. I'll pass that along. It'll move quicker. We'll get a little better price. We'll sell more. I think it's better for everybody. And frankly, the retailers have had it pretty darn good compared to the producer processors for a while. Mm-hmm. The producer processors have not had an advantage probably since November of 2014. They opened it. We opened in July, August. They were definitely, and karma's kind of a bitch. They treated some people pretty badly, but then the retailers retaliated, and I think they remembered, and they kind of beat the shit out of some of the producer processors. And but we've always tried to strike a middle ground. Anyway, I don't want to get up on my cannabis pedestal, high horse, but
So this article says that the increasingly competitive cannabis market is fostering a pay-to-play mentality among marijuana retailers and the brands that they carry. Known as slotting fees, the practice requires brands to pay anywhere from $500 to $15,000 a month for premium space on marijuana retailers' store shelves. Cannabis industry experts recommend marijuana brands build the fees into their budgets because they can cut into profit margins, but the fees are not tax deductible. So while slotting fees are common among mainstream retailers, many of the cannabis industry are just starting to encounter them. So from your own experience, have you encountered this yet in Washington? No?
No,
Right.
no, no. And I would feel very, you know, we've been open now about 5.5 years, and I've been dealing with the LCB for 6 years. And my creativity has sort of been squashed over time. I'm not the brazen, aggressive, maverick type personality I was 6 years ago when I decided to get into this industry. The LCB sort of squeezes that kind of thinking out of you. You know, you're under their thumb. You say yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. They say jump, you say how high on the way up. So if something like that should come across through my front door, over the phone, in an email, I would be, I think at best, wary, and it would feel very strange. It would feel very uncomfortable for me for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, so to your previous point, there's Wana Brand CEO Nancy Whitman. She said that slotting fees are high volume stores such as Las Vegas, like Planet 13, could make sense for companies seeking to expand their distribution and brand recognition. But if you're selling 1,000 units, you're taking $5 off that price, and there's no scenario where that makes sense long term. So, like you said, if you just kind of reduce the fees so that it's available to a lot of consumers, maybe the transaction makes up for it. But in a place like Planet 13, where 85% are tourists, maybe having that premium placement is good for people who aren't necessarily cannabis consumers. They just come to Vegas to consume and gamble, but they're not everyday users. I'm not sure if that's a strategy or advantage, but it seems like it's happening.
Yeah, it's so foreign to me. As we're talking, I'm working through scenarios in my mind, and we've in Washington State, we price according to obviously our wholesale price that we pay. But the wholesale price that we pay, more and more and more, and it's not a perfect science, but more and more is based on what something is. If something is truly top shelf, then you'll pay a top shelf price wholesale, and you'll ask a top shelf price retail. And if it truly is top shelf, then you'll get it. I don't know about paying maybe you have a C grade vendor that's got some deep pockets that wants to pay you for some premium shelf space, and you're inadvertently, like madmen, you're telling, hey, this is our prime stuff. This is the most important stuff to me. And the retailer it can screw with the retailer's mind, it seems to me, because you have a built-in advantage, an agenda to sell that, because they're going to give you $5,000 a month or $15,000 a month for what? Just doing what you normally do: buy product, price it, put it on the shelves. Your head's going to get a little messed up. You're not really going to be. I don't think that's honest. I don't mean. Well, I do sound like a Boy Scout a lot. I know that, but what's good about that? At the end of the day, I don't quite understand.
The article says that it's just normal. So this says that in any other industry, it'd just be considered a marketing expense, and you would just deduct it. Cannabis doesn't allow that under Section 280E of the IRS code. Cannabis business are barred from taking federal tax deductions for expenses that are related to selling federally illegal goods.
Exactly.
But they're talking about per $10,000 to $15,000 a month. Planet 13, for example, offers its vendors benefits, I'm putting that in air quotes, such as in-store promotions, pop-up demonstrations, you could post on social media, and photography and menu board advertising. Isn't that something that we already offer in Washington for vendor days? You come in and a vendor will have that pop-up or in-store promotion, and most of those rec stores will automatically post on social media to get people to come in. and have it on the advertising or have it on their menu board. So I'm not really sure if you come to Washington and you're used to that in Nevada paying 10 or 15,000, it might seem cheap to come to Washington, because I think these are pretty much promotions that stores like yours are already offering.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I'm silly enough to think of being partners with my wholesalers. There are wholesalers, there are vendors that work really hard. They'll make all kinds of offers to come to the store. They'll make all kinds of offers to, on their website, say, hey, in Ellensburg, you can purchase our product at Cannabis Central of Ellensburg. And so we do a little cross marketing that way. But yeah, it just, of course, Nevada, it seems like that's a logical place for that, something like that to be going on. And I think you mentioned in the previous conversation, California, it just seems, when you say pay to play, that just reeks of just dangerous territory. You
sound like a hippie, Rob. You're friends with your vendors. Like, that is so anti-capitalism. But no, slotting fees did start in 2018 in California. Some retailers are asking anywhere from $1,000 to $50,000 a month, depending on how much shelf space they wanted and in how many stores. So, like Nevada, Planet 13, they serve 130,000 people a month. So that's the premium partnership package available to all vendors. But yeah, if you're going to another state like Washington, that's just going to sound really kind of dirty, is to have this pay-to-play system.
Well, and again, I'll put my Boy Scout cap back on. I am still of the opinion, because of public opinion. This is not, 82% of Americans polled feel like, cannabis should be legal somehow or another. The vast majority of that 82%, if you pulled out the medical aspect of it and just adult use / AKA recreational, I don't think you get an 82% approval. I think you barely get 50% across the entire country. Maybe not even quite. Okay, so we've still got a little bit of a PR, a perception problem. But because it is illegal federally, and the 800-pound gorilla in maybe the next room is the federal government, I've always been of the opinion that we still need to be doing it neater, cleaner, better than the other guy. It's like Maverick's dad, was some sort of a whatever. So Maverick's got to be doing it better, neater, cleaner than anybody else, right? In Top Gun. We are not Pepsi yet. We're not selling Pepsi or Coke, Coca-Cola. We're not mainstream yet. So I think you've got some types in this business, and you do in every business, that want to skirt the details. What can I get away with? What can I do and avoid an audit? What can I do and not get a violation? Bump right up against that regulatory guardrail. Well, I don't know. Maybe you got a bad person to talk to about this particular topic, because I want to drive straight down the middle of the lane. I do not want to grind up against the guardrail, the legal guardrail. This just creates situations where your thinking gets messed up, your protocol of how you're wanting to run your business. I think it's a slippery slope, and I think once you start doing stuff like that, then it's like it's mafia like. It's payola. It's, hey, you do this for me and I'll do this for you, maybe, but you got to do this for me first, and I don't know. It just
question whether or not it really is a cost of doing business, because Planet 13 is saying that they have televisions throughout the stores and that gives exposure to consumers, but we have that in every store in Washington, so I don't really see what the big deal is. And Planet 13's president of marketing and sales said that they provide value to those brands, and the idea is to translate that into revenue. But if it's already happening in other states, is it really just a cost of doing business? So Da Vinci, the maker of vapes, they view the merchandising fees as a cost of doing business and building that expense into its business-to-business marketing budget. And the company is going to measure the store sales month over month to determine whether or not its efforts are effective, essentially whether or not it's worth it. So the more established brands are prepared to create higher levels of in-store merchandising and are willing to pay for it. But is that really the right thing to do to the customer? Just because a company is able to pay for it, is that really the brand that customers are going to want or need?
Well, in a true capital, a corporation, a business, you're supposed to maximize your profits. If you don't have profits to maximize, you're supposed to minimize losses. That's what we're supposed to do. Okay, that's the general rule. In the event that somebody's actually paying $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 a month in shelf fees, what did you call it? It's called post.
It's a slotting fee.
Slotting fee. Okay, slotting fee. Well, what about the idea that for me as the store owner, and my employees are the most important part of my business, but a very close second are my customers. I mean, I feel that place, if they just lowered their price of the product, instead of and like we said, you're selling 1,000 pre-rolls, $5,000 a month. Well, geez, I mean, that's $5 per pre-roll. That's a ridiculous. The mathematics don't work on that. But there are algorithms you could put together and figure out, okay, I think we're better served by discounting our price. Because if the American consumer always wants value. They always want value. If I can get $10 worth of something for only $7, that's a great value. If I can get an A-type product, a top shelf type product, and pay C plus B minus prices for it at retail, then that's a terrific value for the customer. And that's going to spur sales. That's going to drive demand. That's going to be better for your business. You're going to sell more product. The consumer's benefited. When capitalism really works, when everybody wins something. We could make a little more money as a retailer. They're going to be spending that money anyway in the form of just an outright cash payment. Yeah, I know there's all these peripheral marketing ideas and promoting in TVs and blah, blah, blah. But in this environment, I think it would make a lot more sense for a vendor to say, hey, rather than do that, we're going to discount our price 25 cents per gram, help us out, maybe pass that along, see if we can't move some more product. Mm-hmm. State's not getting hurt because your total sales are still going to be that or higher. The velocity, it's a natural inventory control situation. If you're getting stuff in and you're selling it every 2 weeks, that's great inventory. You don't have to manage that inventory. It's being managed for you by demand and supply and price and value. I don't know. I'm not scared. I'm not afraid of saying it would scare me. And if it feels wrong, it probably is.
Well, I think that, the two decision makers for consumers are, is it convenient? Is it affordable? So it's price and convenience. But I think that if you don't provide the proper experience for somebody to go into a store and grab a product that they want, ultimately they're not going to come back, even if they're a tourist. And so if you're selling a distillate, if you're selling an isolate instead of a full spectrum oil, for example, somebody may not enjoy that as much. And so if that's on an end cap and that's what's getting $50,000 a month, on the slotting fee, you're not really putting the best product forward, just that somebody is paying you. So I would think that it would be a negative factor over time for consumers to go into a store like Planet 13 and be pushed a product that's just paying more but isn't necessarily the best product. I think with enough time, their reputation could be diminished. It could be impacted negatively as a result of selling products that don't really work for the customer as well as other ones, but just because they're paying more, I think is a disservice to everybody involved.
Well, I think you could make the argument too that that's a way for a producer processor to circumnavigate the competition. I think most people, you shouldn't be afraid to go toe to toe, head to head. Mm-hmm. Let's just keep this on an even playing field, okay? Yeah. So if you can't compete from a quality standpoint, then lower your friggin' price. We'll sell, again, get back to my inventory control, sell it for what it's worth. If it's C-grade stuff, then don't ask A-type prices. It's stupid. You're not going to get it. You're kidding yourself. So, and what good does it do? What's going to happen if we get the $5,000 or the $10,000 or the $15,000 slot fee, and 30 days later the shit's not selling? Then what have we done? Then we're going to have hard feelings. Well, you were supposed to do this with that, and so then you're going to be bickering with one another. And I paid you and I did this and you owe me. Well, I'm not going to be put in that situation. I'm not going to be I'm not going to be put in a situation that some of the rules, I don't know if this was the intent, but we can't issue credit. I can't order 6 months worth of stuff and pay net 15, net 30. Can't do that. You got to pay cash in the barrelhead, right? And conversely, I can't say, okay, I'll give you 10 grand. Please deliver $1,000 worth of stuff for the next 10 weeks every Friday. I can't do that either. So there's really there's some built-in devices if you really follow the letter of the law as well as the spirit of the laws. Nobody can get an advantage over anybody else. That's why they control how many shirts they can give somebody. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's kind of a slippery slope. Okay, I give you a $30 t-shirt. Next time it's a $150 wool coat. Then it's I don't know. Then it's pearl necklace or diamonds to the girls. And where does it stop? Where does it stop? Mm-hmm. I think it keeps us kind of pure, which is a dumb, naive thing to say because people are not pure in this business or any other business. But it sort of forces you to do certain things, and it keeps you from doing other things.
Pay to play doesn't have any kind of positivity to it, right? It's got a negative connotation. It doesn't really exude like some good feelings. It doesn't. No. I don't think it's going to work out in this industry until it's completely legalized and normalized. And slotting fees for cannabis are just like Pepsi and Coca-Cola at a grocery store.
Well, and we have knowingly stepped into a world that we knew was going to be controlled, regulated, and there was going to be, we were hoping that there was going to be a period of stupid, and then we would kind of bust out of that and we would start feeling a little bit more normal, mainstream, whatnot. Well, we're not there yet, obviously.
Still waiting.
We're just, we knowingly got into this business knowing that it would be difficult and regulated. Now, I came out of the retail card business in Washington State. So the transition, the step up to the regulatory framework that we have to deal with, the regulatory straitjacket we have to deal with, wasn't as big of an adjustment for me as it might have been somebody who might have been in a different line of work. And you can say, you and I can say to each other, well, that's stupid. Why do we have to do that? Well, it may be stupid, but you have to do it. Whether it was the quarantine before they did away with the 24-hour quarantine, whether it's, whatever it is, there's a myriad of rules and restrictions in this business. We can say it's dumb, we can say it's stupid, but we knew that when we got into it. You can't say, well, I didn't know it was going to be like this. Well, then you're lying or you're an idiot, one or the other.
Yeah. Pretty naive.
So I just kind of think that, and not everybody does. I get myself in a lot of trouble when I go to meetings because I stand up and say stuff, and I mean, people have said, what are you a Boy Scout? I mean, you're too old to be a Boy Scout. I'm like, well, you know what? We've got to kind of kiss ass. We do. We have to salute and yes sir, no sir, and whatever. Now go to Olympia and testify respectfully and with some dignity about what you think is wrong. But this is still not a normal business, and from my viewpoint, it's not. Yeah. And just because California's come on and legalized, everybody thinks now that's like the head of the snake, and the country's going to follow, and we'll never go backwards now. Bullshit. We have to respect the fact that we've still got to take care of business. Mm-hmm. Because there are forces at work that are kind of poised, ready, I believe, and again, it's kind of a conspiracy theory, but there are many, many people who are uncomfortable with this. And so we have to respect that, and we have to be aware of what we're not really aware of. You have to kind of think outside the box. I mean, there's a lot of layers to this onion, and mm-hmm. We've just got to keep our noses clean because there are people that will pounce. I know this in my town, and I think people are looking for opportunities to say, see, I knew this was a bad idea, and we've got to be proving ourselves every day, every week, every month. And
the stigma is real, and I think that there's a lot of scrutiny in the industry, and so having a pay-to-play system is going to get a lot of headwinds. And if California thinks that they're going to get away with it, I I don't know. There's a lot of money with Curaleaf and companies down there paying a lot of money for ridiculous valuations. But
well, and it's kind of interesting, and the left coast, Washington, Oregon, California. I know that all three of those states really kind of like to thumb their nose at the current administration. I get that. But one of the things Washington State has done that is different than Oregon and different than from California is they have respected, in an official capacity. Now, behind the scenes and off camera, they'll blast Trump. I get that. But we have always respected in Washington State the federal government's role, the Cole memo, the spirit of the Cole memo, DOJ, the banking situation. We have always respected that, and I appreciate that in Washington State. I know that we haven't made the progress maybe that we should have by now, which kind of bothers me, because I think 5.5 years in, I think this experiment has worked just about as nearly as well as it could have possibly been expected to. And I think there's a lot of people that deserve some credit for that, including the state, the governor's office, the regulators, us, everybody. But I do appreciate the fact that we have shown more respect. And I don't really know why that is, because in a lot of ways, Washington State definitely just wants to just give the middle finger to the federal government, But in this world, in our 502 world, I've always been kind of proud of the fact that we've been very respectful. And you have a lot of people like me that who will show respect for differing opinions or questioning opinions, or I've got family members to this day over Thanksgiving. I might have told you this. My brother-in-law sits me down and basically scolds me. Hey, I know you're doing a good job, but this is a shitty thing. You're doing the best you can in a really shitty thing, and I don't agree with it. And I think I don't agree with it. Huh. Okay, thanks, brother. We're 5.5 years, 6 years into this thing, and I'm still getting it from, it was fairly pleasant. But basically, he says, I think you're operating. Now, see, it's kind of funny because I was in the respectable car business for 29 years. Okay. So for him he didn't criticize me for being in the car business, but now he's criticizing me, and my choice is here. Wow. You're doing a good job in an otherwise really crappy thing.
Car salesmen have a terrible reputation.
Oh, so sure they do. Sure they do. Yeah. And yet I didn't hear that. And I felt like I did things. That business is not perfect by any means, not even close. But I feel like I was one of the better guys in a bad, but nothing is ever as bad or as good as you might think it is. Wherever human beings are involved, there's going to be screw ups. In the car business, the same way. Most of the people in the car business are good. Most lawyers are probably not bad people. Most policemen are good people. Most teachers are, but you got an element of bad in everything, right? But I just think that gets magnified in our industry maybe a little bit, and maybe rightfully so. I don't know. I can really only speak for myself in a relatively small sphere of influence, and I think people are pretty darn good. They're business people. It's not good to have negative press if you're in business. It's not good to be called out and do stupid stuff when you're in business. But it's still an interesting world. So the whole pay to play and whatever slot, whatever you want to call it, keep it away from Washington State, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Keep it the hell away from Washington State, in my opinion.
We'll see how long it takes to migrate. If it hit California in 2018, it'll probably go to Colorado in the next 6 to 12 months, and then 18 months after it launches in California, it might hit Washington. If any of the other trends in California hold true, it might be here by 2021.
Sure. Well, and you've got some retail owners, you got some big boys, you got some major players, and there's pressure now. There was a bill in Congress this year, it didn't pass, not going to pass this year, taking the retail license owner number from 5 to 7. And there's movement to keep bumping that up. And so you've got some Godfather types out there.
It's better than the THC cap on concentrates. 10% that would just negate the whole concentrate.
Well,
would be diluted, watered down.
Yeah. Once people realize, lawmakers, regulators realize that once they understood what they were trying to accomplish, but the way they were trying to accomplish it was completely flawed, they kind of went scurrying off in another direction. That pretty much disappeared. It's kind of like cotton candy kind of going away. I think there's going to be something that comes to, but it's going to be based more on real science, not some politician perception of what they think they want to do. Now, in the interest of full disclosure to you, I have resigned. Let me put it this way. I did not run again as a board member for WACA. I mean, I'm sure we've talked about that previously. And our executive director, Vicky, whatever Vicky's last name is, isn't that weird? She has resigned. She's not going to be our executive director because she began taking on clients that it's one thing to have alcohol. She represented alcohol and cannabis, which are maybe similar, but they're not necessarily counter from a regulatory standpoint, because we always wanted to be treated more like alcohol. So that was kind of a natural thing for her, Vicky Christopherson. Well, she's kind of gone over to other sides of what WACA stood for and what was best for WACA in the opinion of WACA. So she did the right thing. She left. She says, you know what? I think, I don't know the details, but I would imagine that she's being better paid by, the quote unquote other side. But so my relationship with WACA is very much watered down from what it was just 3 months ago. So I'm working with the president of WACA, and I'm as a consultant, unpaid consultant, or just a friend of the folks, because these are real people working very hard, doing some really good work. And I've thrown my support behind them from an emotional standpoint, but I'm no longer a board member for WACA. So
interesting. Yeah, there's some smart folks on there. Jerry Daraviani and some other people there's some brilliant minds in that group.
Yeah. I could never pronounce his last name as well as you just did, so it was always just Jerry.
I had him on my podcast. It took me about 12 times to figure that out.
Yeah.
So
he's a bright guy. He's an aggressive guy, but he's smarter than he is aggressive, and he's great. More Andy Brassington with Evergreen Herbal. The guy could be governor. I mean, he's so well-rounded and so intelligent and compassionate and articulate and experienced. I mean, the guy's just amazing. Wendy from up at there's a lot of great folks, and I was on the board for 4 years. So while I was beginning to have differences of opinion, and WACA itself was kind of becoming more, in my opinion, more producer processor driven. The retailers, but I say that, but the retailers didn't need as much help as the producer processors did. I didn't feel. Now, when I say that to people like Jerry, they take it as an insult. What do you mean? I got to be careful about what I say. But I just feel I've always felt very fortunate. From about February of 2015, I have thanked my lucky stars that I was retailer and not a grower processor.
Well, it's going to take some brilliant minds to keep this business afloat and not, have this pay-to-play system. But time will tell.
Yeah.
So, Rob, how can people get a hold of you?
Well, there's a couple different ways. My website is cannabisconsultingnationwide.com. There's a contact form to fill out. We can email. We can call. In fact, I've got 3 people I've got to call as soon as I hang up with you. And Rob at EllensburgApothecary.com. That's the shop address. And on my website, kind of tell a little bit about myself. I'm just a real meat and potatoes guy. I kind of want to be the Mike Rowe of consulting. Jeans and maybe a slightly dirty sweatshirt, and I'll just tell you what I think, and I'll tell you the truth. And I'm not for everybody. I know that. There's a lot of gloss and glitter in this business, especially on the consulting side, and I just want nothing to do with it. It just pisses me off, frankly. So I'm working with folks in Missouri, Michigan, Illinois, Arizona, and California. Working on something kind of interesting in Michigan, because they've still got about 1,400 townships that have banned retail, and I'm pretty close to becoming kind of a not exactly a celebrity, but like the face of retail cannabis. And I'm not very scary. I'm 60 years old. I'll be 61 in May. Father of 3, grandfather of 5, pretty straight shooter. And I think people, I can't tell you how many times I've walked into offices or walked into meetings and they look up and they say, are you with the FBI? No, I'm one of you guys. No, you're not with the DEA? No. And so I think people have I've met a lot of people with long hair and tattoos and piercings and stuff that are fantastic people. But, if you're kind of against this industry, that's what you're thinking. You've got impressions in your mind as to what that industry's like. And I can identify with it because, hell, 7 or 8 years ago, I kind of had some of those same perceptions about the community. So we're very close to putting together a little traveling show in Michigan, just going from township to township, town council meeting, county commissioners meetings. There's different forms of government all over Michigan, and just letting people look at me and just asking questions. I think I can do an awful lot. I don't think I'll convert a lot of those people to smoking joints, but I think I can move them from wary and afraid and concerned to at least a position of neutrality, so that some of these folks who have signed mortgages, who have cleaned out 401ks, who have gotten ready to go into business and they can't, I think we need to think about some of those folks. There's a lot of good folks out there that are trying to do a good job, and they're stymied in a big part by incorrect public perception. And I'd like to try to begin changing that. I'm very close to Michigan to be able to do that. So I'm very excited about that.
Being the Mike Rowe of consultants is pretty appropriate, because this is it can be a dirty job. You got to roll up your sleeves and get your hands in cannabis.
Exactly.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to roll this one up. I want to thank my guest, Rob Hendrix. He's a rec shop owner and consultant. Rob, thanks for being back on the podcast.
It's so great to be here. I appreciate it and love it every time.
I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't. And I'm out.